we can include a smart property that says this value should never be blank in the database. If someone inputs a company and they didn't have a chance to put in that company type, here's the website. Here's how we define these three company types. Could you just populate this for us?
Welcome to the Fund AI Pod. Every participant in the funds industry needs a client relationship management tool, or CRM tool. HubSpot is a platform that connects your marketing, sales, and customer service tools to a unified CRM database. Here to talk to me today about HubSpot and its AI capabilities is the CEO and founder of Soundfront, a gold-accredited HubSpot Solutions Partner. Corey Berse, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Ian. Great to be here.
So Corey, why don't we start with an introduction to yourself, Soundfront, and then perhaps you can dive into what the HubSpot Solutions Partner community is about.
Yeah, I'd love to. So Soundfront is about 2 years old, and we have been a HubSpot Solutions Partner for approaching 2 years. And I started this business after a career largely in the investment banking industry, but more broadly the financial services industry. But working in business management, technology, marketing, across some very large investment banking firms. I spent most of my career at a firm called Houlihan Lokey in the US and London. And then I was with a smaller mid-market M&A firm in the Seattle area. And when I started this business, it was to help smaller firms, initially on the sell side, and we've grown very substantially on the buy side now, help them with this sort of technology. So the CRM tool, but really more importantly, kind of the brain to how the firm runs. And that's what we're configuring in HubSpot. And yeah, so it's coming on 2 years and have worked with 30 plus clients at this point. And it's been a lot of fun.
So tell me, the HubSpot Solution Partner Solutions community, what is it and what do they do for their clients and what do they do relative to what HubSpot itself does?
Yeah, great question. So the HubSpot Solutions Partner Program is a program that allows, in many cases, specialist partner firms. Sometimes they're a little more broad, but it allows them to go to market to sell and configure HubSpot and maintain HubSpot solutions for clients. And there's a process for becoming certified with HubSpot, and there's some quality management on the HubSpot side, and there's also a ton of resources showing how kind of invested HubSpot has been in the Solutions Partner Program, and they're absolutely going to be growing it. And where we approach it from is as an industry specialist HubSpot Solutions Partner. And so, when I might get a call or be introduced to someone who needs kind of generic HubSpot support, I will typically kind of refer them to a more generalist HubSpot Solutions Partner who is going to be set up more for setting up the kind of marketing programs and some of the traditional stuff that HubSpot Solutions Partners have done. Coming from the financial services industry, we have gone all in on financial services and working with, as I said, sell-side firms and asset managers and buy-side firms, and really helping them understand how they can use HubSpot both for the traditional uses of HubSpot, as well as really taking the CRM tool, really the client, the contact relationship management side of it, and tune it very specifically for the markets they're serving, for their business processes. And to date, I think we're the only HubSpot Solutions Partner with a focus in the private markets. And what we're seeing is a lot more interest from financial services clients where HubSpot, once they're in the consideration set for a new CRM platform or automation platform, they may research HubSpot, and oftentimes we're introduced to prospects from a HubSpot sales rep who, this prospect is interested enough in the tool, but they need to see how it can work for their business. And that's really what we provide for them. And at this point, since we're so specialized, a lot of our configurations are done to templates that are then further customized over a very short kind of implementation engagement and onboarding engagement. And we also have a couple of very lightweight software tools that run on top of HubSpot that we provide to our clients that just create a lot of shortcuts for some common workflows in the financial services industry.
Okay, so maybe before we get into some of those workflows, custom builds, and also AI capabilities, let's zoom out a little bit and just share for the audience what HubSpot does, what their core functionality is, what features, who they tend to target. And then maybe you could bring that to life in how someone in the private markets would use it.
Yeah, absolutely. HubSpot started in, I'm going to mess this up, but it's the early 2000s, started by two MIT grads. And, it started as a marketing automation tool, really one of the first marketing automation tools. And so that's when you go to a website and you sign up for a mailing list and you get on that mailing list, and then you receive emails and you receive, offers from time to time. And HubSpot also revolutionized the kind of inbound marketing practice where you have blogs across the web talking about very niche topics. And then you're kind of creating leads from those blogs that are maintained in HubSpot. And those leads come into HubSpot, and your marketing and sales team can stay on top of them, action them. So really it was at the kind of forefront of the marketing automation movement. In the early 2010s, they began investing heavily in their CRM solution that would sit alongside these marketing tools. And that's where a lot of our work is done. That said, a lot of times what we'll find is a marketing team. You'll have a large firm, and there's a marketing team who has been using HubSpot for 10 years to manage the company's blogs and landing pages and content marketing and email automation and social media marketing. But the deal teams, or the people actually doing the work, the professionals, are using antiquated, maybe industry specific tools, or in some cases spreadsheets. And so really HubSpot has grown up a lot over the last 10, 12 years. And we are taking advantage of the functionality that they now provide through this CRM, the set of connected tools that unifies, all these data sources, your marketing outreach. Now they built out a very robust sales automation platform, and that's where a lot of our configurations sit. The growth for us and a lot of solutions partners now is not necessarily setting up HubSpot as the marketing tool, but as the brain of the organization, the system of record across teams, where you're really able to kind of systemize your business practices and sometimes clarify your business practices and your business processes, ensure that you kind of have this flow of information and activities across your organization. And now we're at the point where we can apply heavy automation to help make sure things, whether it's new deals or new capital commitments, new investors you're bringing on board, never lose sight of those, but also, really create some leverage for your teams so that, a lot of the manual work that they've been doing can be automated in a number of ways. And so that's the HubSpot that we are selling today. And when I started this, almost 2 years ago now, AI was kind of it was kind of on the side of the opportunity. It wasn't the main opportunity as I saw it. And just where obviously the markets have gone, and where HubSpot has gone, really being at the forefront of embracing much of the development in AI over the last few years. AI is becoming more and more a larger part of our offering, our delivery. And it's been exciting to see it come to life, and I can only imagine where it goes from here.
And you mentioned the platform can act as effectively a unified data system and can consume external data. Is that correct? From other systems, other platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I would describe HubSpot as one of the most connected enterprise level software tools out there. Between 2,500 apps that are in their marketplace, where most of the other tools you're using have a quick application to connect to your HubSpot and see that data, to an open API where you can very quickly spin up a custom app or a public app to serve a number of functions, and use HubSpot's API for that. And the latest is HubSpot's investments in MCP, or Model Context Protocol, where AI agents can talk to one another and understand each other, and have full access to the context that these various systems provide.
Beat me to it. I was going to ask you about APIs and MCP, but there you go.
You mentioned connections. You baited me.
When it comes, though, to leveraging other data sources, how do you get comfort around the data quality, cleaning it, normalizing it so it can be useful when you're applying AI tools over your data or HubSpot's data plus what you are combining it with?
I mean, there's a couple of different ways. At its most basic, HubSpot enables you to create kind of a data matrix, where when you have various enrichment sources that you might be using to kind of fill out the rest of your data, we can very, in a fine-tuned way say, what's the order of, priority from these data, different sources. When should data be entered into HubSpot? Don't overwrite any existing data, only fill in, only enrich this record or add existing data if it's missing. And then at a much more comprehensive level, HubSpot just in the fall kind of rebranded what was once known as Operations Hub to Data Hub. And Data Hub is the missing link for really what you just described. And Data Hub is, it's not its own data warehouse, but it functions very similarly. And it's a data joining and transformation layer that, is akin to, some of the best, business intelligence tools out there, and how they do this same sort of data joining. But we can do that in the HubSpot platform, do all sorts of transformation and kind of a holding place before that data makes its way into the core CRM. So, those are just two examples, HubSpot native examples of how we control for, data mismatches or prioritization or that sort of thing. But then obviously there's all sorts of other tools, available out there that can help with managing, these sort of data flows. But HubSpot is definitely on top of, solving for these challenges that organizations face when they start to go down this road of integrating data sources, adding automation, and so forth.
Brilliant. And once you've got that data, you have the ability then to overlay AI capabilities. So where is HubSpot at in terms of their AI features, products, and directionally kind of where are they going with it?
I mean, I think like almost everyone out there, HubSpot is probably just at the beginning of their journey of, integrating and creating value out of AI. On the flip side, they're far ahead of a lot of other, tools and platforms out there. And that gives me a lot of comfort for where we're headed. The most important thing to remember about HubSpot is it's not AI first. There are tools out there that are AI first. I don't consider HubSpot to be AI first. It's 20 years old. HubSpot is database first. It is your processes first. It is the system of record. It's really where you kind of, I keep saying it, but you can create the brain for your organization and how data and work flows in HubSpot. That's first. What I'd say where HubSpot is going with AI is integrating it wherever humanly possible to create more leverage for users and to, 10x the value you're getting out of the platform. Some examples of where HubSpot has introduced AI capabilities so far. I think the first they launched was an AI assistant, like most others. So it's an LLM, but that LLM, like most others, has grown up. So with the HubSpot assistant now, we can query, your entire HubSpot database and get an answer. But now it can also take action on your database. So if I say, go create a new deal for this company, or here's a list of 5 email addresses. Can you go please create the records for these? Like, it can do that sort of stuff. They've integrated MCP with it as well. So while you're querying the HubSpot assistant, you can give it access to your, Google Drive or, Gmail or Outlook or other tools to have additional context. And so, that's kind of where they started with it. They are launching their own series of, agents. These agents, they've kind of launched with some kind of standard agents, call it a deal loss agent, where you can query your database and say, look at trends on my last years of lost deals and give me a report. And, when we do this, it'll give, great insights, great actionable recommendations that you can go and configure in HubSpot today to help, avoid those losses in the future. And they're kind of launching now the ability to build your custom agents in HubSpot to do, whatever it is that you want to do in the background with the data that you're entering, or more often is kind of ending up in HubSpot via integration.
Sorry, just on that, you mentioned obviously some standard agents, and I assume that's obviously, you gave a good example there, but workflows that they expect will be common across the client base, or at least popular. You mentioned then the ability to potentially build your own agents, effectively agentic workflows. I would assume people may have their own workflows. Given we're early in the adoption phase, how much of your time would be spent kind of educating clients? Or have you had some clients that have been far along and they've wanted help on some really customized, complex agents?
Yeah, I mean, and HubSpot itself is still very early days in making these agents kind of customizable at a like base level where you can kind of build them from the ground up. And I think that's because, it's prompting is still an art in some cases. And so they want to make sure that the tools they're providing are going to work for their clients. And so the first thing they're doing is, taking these standard agents and allowing you to customize them and just add additional instructions for what they're already built to do. We're not yet at the point where in HubSpot we're building native agents. For that sort of thing, that's where we'll integrate with a OpenAI or a Claude account, and through HubSpot workflows. This is another place HubSpot is invested in the AI integrations. We can prompt our custom LLMs now through HubSpot workflows. So when something happens, we can grab a bunch of data, pass it over to one of the frontier models, and then have an agent run and then bring back kind of the activities there.
If you're enjoying the Fund AI pod, the best way to support the show is simple: hit subscribe. It really helps a new channel like this grow, and it allows us to attract even more interesting guests from across the funds industry. Head to www.thefundaipod.com to catch past episodes, nominate future guests, or explore ways that we can work together, whether that's consulting, sponsorship, speaking, or collaboration. Now back to the episode. Given HubSpot has APIs and Claude and all these guys are built, they can connect in with MCP, and what's stopping them effectively cutting you out, saying, you know what, you've got some nice tools there, but everyone's using multiple tools and they end up saying, use Claude or use ChatGPT as my main GUI, get an API or MCP into HubSpot to get the data you need, combine it here. And how do you stop yourself getting cut out there?
Yeah, I think it is a worthwhile question, and I think it's, you look at what's happening in the market, the stock market, the last couple of weeks since Claude made its announcement about co-work and its assistants. But the again, HubSpot's not AI first. HubSpot believes, and I continue to believe, that no matter how good the AI is, it's going to need your firm, your multi-billion-dollar asset management firm still needs a system of record that is structured, that is queryable, that is, you can generate the reports on it the way you need it. You can take action on it. And even the coolest vibe coded, deal outreach tools I've seen that are, fully autonomous and next level, all of that activity is still being written back to a centralized CRM. Because at the end of the day, your organization still needs a brain that is kind of storing this information in a sensible way. And the challenge you see with prompting the AI models is, it's gotten better than ever at remembering the context and remembering the information you've given it, to it previously, but it still doesn't represent a structured database. It still is not going to give a compliance team the very specific list of checkpoint things that have happened before a deal is taken on. And I take a lot of comfort in, knowing that there's going to be that need for that for a long time. That said, I'm not keeping my head in the sand. Like my role now in the HubSpot ecosystem environment, where the things I'm doing day to day today is probably going to change over the next couple of years. But all I can do is kind of stay at the leading edge of it as best as possible. And, I'm starting to use MCP and, prompting for some of my HubSpot configurations. I'm looking at ways to use HubSpot to make us a better business, to enable us to provide more value to our clients. And frankly, AI is still 5 to 10% of what I do, if that much. And so, we're still moving firms off of spreadsheets in a lot of cases. There's a couple of stepping stones that organizations are going to have to take before they're ready for the fully autonomous agent powered organization. And, I'm just, we are, you know, focused on that opportunity. The HubSpot Solutions Partner program continues growing. It continues getting more niche focused, like I am. It's the same evolution a lot of other enterprise, SaaS tools have taken in their, partner ecosystems. And so it's still very much early days of this. Is there a risk of, here's a great example. And this is the sort of thing that, like, this is less of a threat than an opportunity to me. But we set a client up with HubSpot. We did a 4-week implementation with them. They were using it within the first week. A few weeks after we set them up, we talked about, building out a, potential workflow in HubSpot that would require a whole lot of, custom configuration. It wasn't exactly purpose built. And we talked about, okay, maybe we'll pick this back up. 2 weeks later, they told me that with 𝒉𝒂𝒄, they were able to very quickly spin up a small, lightweight app that was connected to their HubSpot instance that we built for them, and allows them now to have just a little app that manages this function for them that didn't make sense to build out in HubSpot, and at least not yet. To me, that's a huge opportunity because, like I said, even the best vibe coded tools still need a database of record. They still need to be anchored, in my opinion, to work right. You still need that anchor, that central repository that's kind of tying everything together, prompting the agent to run, getting the agent outputs back, pushing the next step forward. And that's what we're building in HubSpot. So, AI in my mind is amplifying the HubSpot opportunity more than anything else. That's how we're viewing it.
When you have new clients that are onboarding to HubSpot and they're also interested in AI tools, what would be some of the best practices you'd recommend for those firms when they're coming on board and they also looking at AI adoption as well?
Yeah. And as I said before, the focus should still be on that foundational data layer. What are we configuring? How should it be configured? What's the ideal way to structure the data so that it can then be ingested and used, downstream for AI use cases? The way I recommend firms look at it is, some balance of which tasks adjacent or within the CR, that are touching this platform, which tasks are taking up the most manual, repeated time. But you have to look at that in conjunction with what are the models and tools capable of doing today. And so it's finding that sweet spot. With our clients, through the implementation, it usually will start to, while we're working through what their specific processes are, how information and work flows across the org, it starts to become clear where we can just use some AI to improve either the user experience or the value that they're getting from the platform. Almost every portal today, we're starting to use, another way HubSpot has leaned into integrating AI is what they call smart properties, where you can, for any property in your database, we have a place that if it's blank, we can include a prompt. And that prompt, this is using HubSpot's native AI, which is generally ChatGPT under the hood. And so we can tell HubSpot that, hey, whenever this property, company type, is this an operating company? Is it a capital provider? Is it a channel partner? We can include a smart property that says this value should never be blank in the database. If someone inputs a company and they didn't have a chance to put in that company type, here's the website. Here's how we define these 3 company types. Could you just populate this for us? On top of the kind of standard data enrichment that you get with a platform like HubSpot, this very specialized prompt-based data enrichment, that is something we're starting to do in most of our portals today. Another place this comes up a lot is in business development teams. Let's say it's a private equity business development team. They've got a process for identifying target companies in their criteria, and they'll load it into HubSpot as a lead list. And what we're doing in a lot of portals is configuring an agent to draft an outreach email for this target based on some standard things you might always say in your outreach. But then a hyper personalized second paragraph that uses the information about the company, goes out and researches it, and takes a first stab at explaining why this company is a good potential partner for the sponsor. We're still not at the point where I recommend this sort of stuff be ungated. So it's still very much about human in the loop. And again, that's where having a platform like HubSpot, those deal teams can come in to a list of pending outreach companies and see the drafted paragraph and just click approve. And that's going to add that contact to the sequence using that paragraph text, or edit the text a little bit before it goes out. That's something we're doing with a lot of firms. On the deal risk and compliance side, we're embedding prompts that will look at the activities and characteristics of a deal and help flag risks either for the deal team or for the compliance teams based on what we're seeing. We're at the point now where we're kind of mostly limited by our imagination. And then obviously the quality of the models, but as you know, that's getting better and better every day. And so it's more important to just to keep imagining bigger and trusting that these tools are going to catch up, because so far that's what's happened.
When looking at automation opportunities, whether the workflows or with AI, if you were to try and identify quick wins, which would typically be your low level of complexity but high impact, high value return. What would be some common quick wins that you would see across your client bases that you would recommend they implement?
But yeah, I mean, it's like we said, it's deal scoring. It's looking at the characteristic, looking at the data available and applying a framework that you provide, and allowing these models to give you. It's not going to be the end all be all, but it'll be one of the inputs you might take in evaluating an opportunity. Honestly, a lot of the quick wins aren't AI yet. A lot of the quick wins are showing organizations that they even have the ability to create a manual. I mean, it's a manually created workflow that's a very clear workflow. If this, then that. The quick wins are there because most organizations don't even have that yet. There's
It is scary, isn't it?
that's where we start, and then really it's okay. Now that we've built the workflows, how can we use AI to make the workflows even more efficient, consistent, accurate? That sort of thing, and that's good example there is maybe deal scoring. So HubSpot's got its own deal scoring functionality, and it's awesome. You can go in, and for your organization, you can say, okay, add this many points if this property says this, subtract this many points if the property says that. But what if we can embed AI and have some AI inputs that can be taken into account as part of that scoring? I mean, we're just increasing the context of those scoring models. We're not leaving it to chance how that score gets calculated. It's not a subjective score, but the inputs, we're suddenly eliminating manual research work that someone might have to do, go find the revenue for the company and input it in. Or we can set up an agent to go and with a 95% confidence interval find the most recent revenue for this company. It's still, the quick wins are mostly in creating the workflows, but then adding the AI on top of that just to make them work better. For me, one of the core ways I've been using AI since the start of my business is through call recording and note taking. And this is depending on your compliance regime. This may or may not fly for your organization, but from the very beginning, every one of my calls, client-facing calls is recorded. I use a tool called Fathom. It's recorded, and then within 30 seconds, I get the call summary. I have the ability to chat with my call transcripts. It changed the way I work almost immediately, and it continues to be a big part of the way I work today. So a quick win was using an AI-enabled call note taker that's then integrated with my HubSpot, and so my call notes are added and summarized every time I finish a call. I don't need to do anything. But now we're getting to the point where we can take those transcripts and also, extract a HubSpot property that really should be populated based on something we discussed. We might have been talking to a business and find out that it does $10 million in EBITDA last year. And, we had that in the conversation, and that call gets recorded, the transcript's there, and my HubSpot can see that transcript and extract that EBITDA figure and put it on the company's record.
Now that's a great example, and I do love that. I am curious, is that something that is embedded within it, or it requires mapping? I mean, obviously the LLMs can kind of extract, maybe the human needs to approve, yep, that makes sense. How does that work?
Yeah, it depends how you're setting it up. Today, it requires mapping. You need to generally, whichever of these tools you're using that's integrated with HubSpot. HubSpot, by the way, has its own as well. I happen to like some things that Fathom does. Today, you need to create those mappings and say, okay, what are the possible properties that could come out of that call? And if you identify it, go ahead and populate it. Sometimes it's a multiple choice option. You need to define, how you want that agent to run after. Where we are headed is the kind of MCP way, which is, you've got an agent that has your call transcript and full access to your HubSpot database and all the properties you have. And obviously you can train it to help define things and whatnot. But after that call, that agent can then just say, hey, did we discuss anything that should be updated in HubSpot? And it can figure that out. that's where this is headed. But for now, it's generally, most tools available today, you're mapping the properties that you want figured out.
When it comes to AI, we've spoken, not even AI, we've spoken a lot about automation and efficiencies. The one area that I'm curious on is insights. So HubSpot would have a lot of information. You've had 100 meetings, you've closed 20 commitments. Is it at the stage yet where it could say, look, you're having the most success with family offices with 200 to 500 million? That should be where you should target, or you're having the most callbacks here. So it's giving you that insight into the data that it has. So we're moving from efficiency to insights. Where's HubSpot at on that journey?
I think it's probably a 3-level kind of journey. And so at its core level, HubSpot is great at analytics and generating dashboards and reports and, manually, someone like me or, a user generating the reports and dashboards that you want to be seeing for your business. That's kind of level one. That's been there for some time. I don't think that's going anywhere because organizations still have, the KPIs they create. They want to be able to, track those. That's level one. Level two, I think, is then using HubSpot's built-in assistant to query it and say, hey, can you create a report for me? Can you create a dashboard for me that has these things on it? Or can you go and summarize this or, do this analysis and come back and give you, it's getting very good at that. Level three is using a HubSpot MCP connector. So with Claude or ChatGPT, and within your Claude or ChatGPT, giving it context of your entire HubSpot database and, schema. Because then you can tell Claude or ChatGPT to analyze your HubSpot data, give it a couple questions, and then it can go and generate a 20-page report for you on what you've gotten there, what it's seeing, what its recommendations are. And again, you can also do this within the HubSpot agents, seemingly, but I'd say that MCP connection directly to the providers themselves, where you can then go and just, like you would ask Claude or ChatGPT to generate a research report for you, you can do the same thing and you can give it access to HubSpot and other things. You can tell it to not only look at your HubSpot data, but also go and benchmark it to other firms, and so there's so much power there, but such early days.
Well, I've appreciated learning a lot about HubSpot. If someone was to consider HubSpot, what would be the one key message you'd have for them?
My one key message for firms considering HubSpot and maybe being on the fence about it would be, don't be short-sighted about creating that foundational data layer for your organization that is, really well defined, really sensibly structured, data flows how it should be flowing. And with a platform like HubSpot, it can do that for you now. You can't skip that step. The beauty of HubSpot, as you consider this against other platforms that can do that first part, is how quickly and robustly they've invested in connecting AI tools to almost every part of the platform. And, I'm doing this today because, I think I'm about as future-proofed as I can get, looking at the landscape of where we are and where this is headed. And I don't think this foundational data layer is going anywhere, certainly not in enterprises, certainly not in financial institutions with the regulatory regimes and record-keeping requirements that they have. That's not going anywhere. So as you consider that key part of your tech stack today, you need to also look at, well, where is it going with AI? How does it connect to other tools? How can this be the jumping off point for this next phase of our technological growth and investment? And that's how you have to think about HubSpot. And I trust that if you ask yourself those questions, you, like many others, will make the right decision and come on board.
Excellent. All right, Corey. So for those that are interested in learning more about Soundfront and yourself, do you have a website? Does your company have a LinkedIn? And obviously yourself.
Yes, yeah. So we're on LinkedIn as Soundfront, our website, soundfront.io. And I'm Corey at soundfront.io and would love to chat with anyone interested.
Brilliant. Well, Corey, appreciate coming on the pod. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.